So, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. We're back to talk more Batman the Animated Series. So, we're doing both. This is our third video. Or actually, wait, Leather Wings, Christmas. This is our fourth video. So we're doing episodes 4 and 5, though. We're going to be tackling both Feats of Clay number 1 and 2. Just because it's a two-parter, and I kind of want to move it along as much fast as I can. I mean, because there's like 85, 86 episodes, so we're already looking at more than a year to do this show. So this is where you can kind of see just the show kicking into high gear. Like, On Leather Wings was a great introduction. And while I cheated with Christmas with the Joker, which comes, you know, technically later to some people, Heart of Ice shows like just what they can do with this, right? But Feat of Clay is where we start to get already into our stride. But we get two different directors, definitely two different animation styles in these episodes, telling a great story that couldn't be done in just one episode. Now, I mean, I wish we could do that with everyone. Like, I think Heart of Ice would have been great as a two-parter and just develop the story more. But in Feat of Clay, we've got Ron Perlman, Hellboy himself, the guy he was on, you know, Sons of Anarchy. For some reason, his character's name is gone from me right now. Clay Morrow. Ron Perlman is just an incredible actor. I like him a lot. And then we have the great, still with us, thankfully, Ed Asner. Ed Asner, man, it's 2019. Ed Asner is still alive and kicking right now. But in this, he plays Roland Daggett, one of the great animation bad guys. I mean, seriously, he's one of those corporate baddies that is just unbelievable. So we don't have a lot of trivia for this one, but the Imperial Pictures lot that's featured in this episode is meant to kind of be like an homage to the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, California. They picked, like, it's nice, it's interesting to focus on Perlman because his character is Clayface, who can change his, you know, appearance. And Perlman is one of these actors that's known for being able to change his appearance in a lot of performances, kind of like Gary Oldman. But one of the most interesting bit of trivia I found was that Roland Daggett was not supposed to be the villain in this. They were going to use Max Schreck. And you go, well, who is Max Schreck? Well, if you don't know who Max Schreck is, shame on you. Because he was the villain, the real villain in Batman Returns. Played brilliantly by Christopher Walken. Now, I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't, I don't know if they'd have been able to get Walken to the Max Schreck. That would have been amazing. But he was supposed to be the villain in this, but Tim Burton didn't like the idea. The guy who would go on to not even do another Batman movie. So they scrapped that and decided to make it Roland Daggett and Daggett Industries. And that's how that was created. This episode is directed by Dick Seabass. The first part is, anyway. It's the story's by Michael Reeves, and it's written by Marv Wolfman, who has done a lot of stuff, including Blade 2. And to get to our like little, I do my little tributes to people. I thought because Clayface is so interesting, I thought we would mention this week, for people that don't get mentioned very often, character designers. There were several on this episode, and I had to divide it up into a couple. And I'm only doing the ones from the first one, and I apologize to the people who are in the second part of this, but I kind of cheated because one of these people it doesn't need mentioning, and that'll be clear in a second. But one of them was Dan Reba. He was a character designer on this episode. He's done everything from, his most recent credit was Harvey Girls Forever. I don't know what that is. But he also goes all the way back to Alf. Another one is Glenn Murakami, who's worked most recently on stuff like Teen Titans Go and Batman Beyond the movie. So character designs, that's what these people are known for. And who was the third character designer on this episode? Genndy Tartakovsky. If you don't know who Genndy Tartakovsky is, he's Samurai Jack. Got, you know, he did the original Star Wars: The Clone Wars. His primal show that was just on Adult Swim is unbelievable. He's great at visual storytelling, and I definitely feel like the Mandalorian that's out right now is definitely kind of like an homage to that style of animation, like Samurai Jack style live action cartoon kind of thing. So that's really cool that Genndy Tartakovsky was a character designer on Batman the Animated Series at one point. A couple other notable voice actors in this episode are Ed Jr., who plays a guy named Germs, and Scott Valentine as a guy named Raymond Bell. And if you don't know who Scott Valentine is, again, shame on you. He was Justine Bateman's boyfriend on Family Ties. And shame on me, I think his name was Nick on that show, and he was the boyfriend of her that Alex hated. Well, hate's a strong word, but anyway, that's all the little bits of information. Let's jump into the episode. So, this episode is, I forgot this, man. I am so glad that I am, like, seeing this for the first time in a while, because I forgot how this opened. Where we have this clandestine meeting between Lucius Fox and Bruce Wayne at, like, an empty construction site. And I'm like, this is really weird. Like, why are they meeting like this? Now, I picked it up pretty quickly what was going to happen, but at first I really was like, wow. Like, maybe he's giving him, like, some new kind of tech or something. Because Lucius is like, man, you know, I could have given you these papers, you know, at the office. And Bruce is acting really paranoid. So I go, oh, okay, I figured this out, what this is, you know. This isn't Bruce. But they're talking about how they have this paperwork. They've been doing this research on Roland Daggett and finding out that he's into all sorts of shady stuff. And insider trading, I think, was one of the things they mentioned. And Lucius is going to give the papers to Bruce, but he's like, yeah, this would be really useful if I were to take it to the authorities, but I'm not going to. And, you know, he threatens, all of a sudden these goons come out, they start opening fire on Lucius Fox to kill him, and meanwhile he runs away. Well, the gunshots are heard by Batman, who comes and has this really great action fight with these guys, like really like, really going at each other. I mean, you've seen it behind me, so you know what I'm talking about. They really go at each other. Well, Lucius gets knocked out, and the cops come. And his last words before he passes out is, Bruce Wayne did this to me. Meanwhile, the guy who was pretending to be Bruce dips and walks in front of a theater that just happens to be playing a Matt Hagen movie, where Matt Hagen here is this actor who has been using this cream that it allows him to change his face because he's got a deformed face. But this cream has been allowing him to play other roles. But every time he uses it, it takes long. It doesn't last as long. Everything hurts. There's effects to him. He's aware of all the things that this is doing to him, but his desire for fame and to keep his acting career going is making him like an addict who is becoming more and more desperate to find this stuff. And so he, you know, he's got this long-suffering partner here who's trying to tell him, we've dealt with this before. But Matt doesn't want to do horror movies because before he got this cream, that's what he was cast as because of the way he looks. But then it's changed, and now he doesn't want to go back to that. He doesn't want to go back to that ugliness. Well, also, when he was getting this cream, Daggett was making him do jobs. I've been doing this a lot in this episode, the jobs, which means he's probably killed people. It's quite possible. They don't say it, but jobs, you know, for this kind of guy means killing people. I love the design of these two guys. These two henchmen actually have, like, distinct personalities. Bell on the right there, he wears these, he can pick up police radio transmissions, so they're always, like, one step ahead of the cops. Meanwhile, that guy, Germs, that's on the left of Daggett, his quirk is that he's, like, really afraid of, like, hospitals and illness and sick people. It's like a detail that they don't normally would have in anything. And a lot of these episodes don't normally give you those kind of details of the criminals. But they kind of play a role in this, which is also another strange thing. It's usually villain, you know, or the third party as well, villain that the villains, the other character's mad at, and then you got bats. But so this was kind of unique for the episode. And there goes my camera freaking out. So, Also, in that fight scene at the beginning when Bats lowers himself down, was really cool. Like, very Spider-Man of him. Let's get around here. Hagen's losing his shit. Trailer Cream. So Daggett and his cronies, though, they're plotting this thing, and they plan on getting rid of Hagen because he didn't deliver the papers, and there's always the potential that he could become a witness against him, and so go ahead and take him out. Like, that's basically like deal with him. They focus on that too as foreshadowing to like take care of him, so you kind of know that that's going to play a role in it. But they don't have to worry about Hagen because they know Daggett knows that he'll come for the cream. And which, you know, Hagen, again, he comes for the cream here, and he tries to pretend to be Bruce Wayne again. He's dead. He's an addict, and he doesn't care how he gets it. But it doesn't fool these guys a second time, or even a first time, really. They just know he's desperate. So he tries to take off because they're going to kill him. He knows they're going to kill him. And there's a lot of lines like that, like people going for a ride, like, I know what that means, you know, that kind of thing. Well, instead of just straight up shooting him, man, like, that's all they had to do, right? But it's the creation of Clayface here. So this guy, Bell, has germs, who I'm surprised was even able to hold him down because of the goopy stuff that they were about to use on this guy. They hold him down, and they dump this stuff on him, and you can hear it going into his mouth. They pull it to the shadows so that you don't actually see the event happening. You see it in the shadows, but you see it coming into the, you know, like they really got around this because you see it without seeing it. Like, the shadow sees the stuff going all up and around and into his mouth, so that they're drowning him in this cream. That's really dark. I loved it. Even when I was a kid, I was like, oh my god, like, this is rad. So they leave him for dead in his car, and you can see like parts of him are like already starting to ooze off of himself. And it's just, we haven't even seen Clayface yet. This is like all origin story. This is all like build up and like the mystery of Bruce Wayne, you know, like being wanted for questioning. Who doesn't even know at this point that he was wanted for questioning? Because he didn't know that that Lucius, you know, named him. He didn't see this fake Bruce at that meeting. So Batman, though, goes to his computer and he does a recreation of the fight that he had, of the face of the guy he hit. He's like, I know I've punched that face before. And he recreates Bell's face on his bad computer. So he finds Bell, and he, knowing that Bell has the headset where he monitors police communications, Batman starts, he's in the Batwing, and he's putting out a fake transmission in a woman's voice saying, you know, that Bell is wanted for questioning and involvement of all this stuff. So Bell's trying to get out of there. He's like, oh no, man, I'm not going down for this. I'm out of here. Like, he's not even planning on staying around to like finish the job that that Daggett wants him to do. He just gets the hell out of there. But he doesn't know that he's being tracked by the Batwing. Now, another cool thing about this is I never noticed that this new headset that I have is really, really great. And I never noticed the noises that the Batwing makes when it's flying. It sounds very much like a speeder, kind of like or not necessarily a speeder, but like one of those like on Hoth in Empire Strikes Back, or like the way you hear ships fly in Star Wars. I kind of I can't really do it. I'm not that great at that kind of thing, but whatever. It just makes these really cool noises, and it's chasing him down. Like, he goes into a tunnel, and the Batwing supposedly can't get there, and he's nobody else here. It's totally the software that just keeps flaking. But we do have a new camera coming by the 21st, so hopefully we'll lose some of these issues. But the Batwing comes flying into the other side of the tunnel, and impales his car here on the spikes of the Batwing and takes off with him in it. Then has this like claw come in, grab Hagen by the arm, and then pushes the car off of the Batwing, sending the car flying down. And Belle, I'm sorry, is like hanging there above, way above the sky, water of Gotham City Bay or whatever. And Batman takes him for a little ride, like skimming the water, telling him, and this is where he almost, like, I think Bale might have taken this impersonation where he's like, "Tell me who did it." You know, it doesn't get, he doesn't usually get this loud in the cartoon. At least I don't remember it that much. But he's really laying it on thick with this guy because it's about him. Somebody's saying that Bruce Wayne threatened Lucius Fox, one of his closest friends, and he wants to know who's trying to pin this on him. So he's really going after the guy. But unfortunately, Bell faints before he can tell him anything. That's when the freaking cops arrive and say, "Look, we appreciate you catching this guy, but it's time for you to hand him over to us." So even here, like early in this season, or in the show, he's still, wanted. There's still that whole organization, or that whole task force to try to bring the Bat down. He hasn't been fully accepted yet. And I actually can't remember if he's ever been fully accepted on the show as, for what he does. Like kind of in the comic books where they just kind of let him do whatever he wants. So Bats just drops the guy. It's like, this will probably wake you up. And he drops it from like a really high height into a rooftop pool. And that's the last we see of Bell. And I was disappointed in that because he does have the information. And still trying to prove that he's innocent, he kind of this is kind of stupid actually. This is kind of stupid of Bruce because he sneaks into, he doesn't understand who did this, and it doesn't occur to him that somebody with really really good makeup or whatever pretending to be him. It's just, he's got to just be mistaken. So he scales the building, but dressed as Bruce Wayne, and goes into Lucius's hospital room where he's like, "Hey man, I would never do this to you. What's going on?" I mean, Lucius starts freaking out, "No," and gets the bell and buzzes for security. And the security, and they arrest Batman. Well, they arrest Bruce, Batman. And he gets taken away. He doesn't try to escape because they got him dead to rights in the room. There's nowhere for him to go. What's he going to do? Fight the cops? He has to have some, So he gets arrested. Meanwhile, Hagen's buddy finally tracks down his car, where you see Hagen is just doesn't look right, doesn't look human. And he finally, you'll get that look in the car of him hunked over. You see that face of Clayface, which is basically the face that they still use now in the comics. They really, from the show on, really embraced a lot of the images that the animated series started with, with Mr. Freeze, and of course Harley Quinn was a creation of the show. Who doesn't know that? But also just a lot of the character designs in a lot of ways have been used from this show, which is just another testament to why this is the best. We can talk about all the other things, but again, for me, this show is the best Batman thing. I love 1989 Batman, and even Batman Returns is pretty great. And Dark Knight, let's say 5/6 of that movie is fantastic. I'm not going to mention Dark Knight. Batman Begins is also really good too, but this, and even Arkham Asylum, are all really good, but this just to me is the standard. This is Clayface now. He hasn't come to fully realize that himself, but he's no longer just a person anymore. He's been overdosed with this cream, and now he's this now. There's no just going back to this. And so that's where we end part 1, and we're about to end part 1 right here. We will switch over, but first we're going to have to talk about part 2. It's directed by Kevin Altieri, so we get a different director. Kevin Altieri, if we've talked about in I believe the very first episode, I think he directed On Leather Wings. Kevin Altieri, he just brings, man. Every time you see a Kevin Altieri animated show, it just looks so good. Now, not to knock at all first part of Feet of Clay. It's really good. It's just I don't notice the animation as much. I'm more like entranced by the actual story that's going on and the voice acting that's going on. Like Ed Begley Jr. is really good as Germs, and Ed Nazareth is great as Daggett, and even Scott Valentine, who I had to concentrate really hard to hear the actor that I know behind that voice, was really good as Belle. But the animation really stands out here in part 2. It's so great, especially when you get to the end of part 2 of Feet of Clay. It's just killer, man. And so I didn't have anybody listed. There were a couple of names that I had here. Chen Yi Chang was a character designer for part 2. He's done, let's see, what his most recent credits are: Dragon's Race to the Edge, which I assume is like How to Train Your Dragon stuff. He's done like Kung Fu Panda 2. And then his earliest is like, yeah, the series, like as far as character design and stuff and story artist. Some of his earliest stuff. Tarzan, visual development artist. And then we're going to pop this menu up and go over to episodes, and we'll jump into Feet of Clay part 2. And then the other character designer was Michael Diedrich. Michael Diedrich has done, like, all these people have just really great pedigrees now, like after doing like the stuff that they've done. I haven't seen anybody like the newest thing, like for him was like he's got 35 credits, but he was like doing Phineas and Ferb and like early stuff. Wow, like he's got a really long track record here, going back to '87 with Beverly Hills Teens. And Captain N, if you don't know what Captain N the Game Master is, look it up on YouTube. It was a Nintendo-based video game show with like Mega Man and Simon Belmont and Kid Icarus and Metroid Mother Brain. Oh my God, it's just fantastically, it's really, really great. The live action stuff that's at the beginning is so freaking fantastic too. So, now that it's started here, when they even do a previously on for part 2 of Feet of Clay. So, Bruce, at the beginning of this episode, he's bonded out of jail, and they have to figure out, like, Bruce is like, I don't understand what is happening here. How could Lucius Fox think that I would do this to him? So immediately, he gets the costume on and he takes off with his suit. Meanwhile, Clayface, his buddy is still covered. A really great friend who's been standing by him through this whole, like, the first episode. That he's like this long-suffering person that's been with him for like a really, really long time. And he's always there to try to tell him, we've come back from this, we can do this, don't worry about it, we'll have a career. But when you see Clayface just like sitting there looking at himself in the mirror, like, come back from this, like he's so massive. He's so, in the design of this character, when I first saw it, when I was like, gosh, I must have been like 17, maybe 16. Yeah, like 17. It was just amazing. I'd never seen anything like that before, and I'd been reading Batman comics at this point for like 3 years or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. And so I just was blown away by his design. Well, Daggett plans, he gets Germs together because now they have Belle in custody. And again, they have this like great facial expressions that have changed from the first episode. They're way more expressive reactions, and Daggett's face goes like really scary at one point when he's talking about what they're going to do to Lucius Fox because they don't have Hagen. There goes the camera again. Sorry, everybody. Again, it just goes into like standby mode, and it is still black. Okay, here we go. So here we see that. All right. But this is, yeah, the conversation here that they're having. Just look at the facial animations and stuff that I'm talking about. Well, he sends. They plan on finishing Lucius off, and this guy, Germs, he's supposed to, now that Bell's in jail and Hagen is Clayface and wants to kill him. He's the only one left, so he's got to go in the hospital. And I love his reaction, like, "But sir, the hospital, all those sick people, the sickness and the germs." It's just, he sells it well in the voice acting, but not just that. The animation really reflects this guy's paranoia and illnesses. It's just really cool. And again, I mentioned this, like I write it down all the time. The animation is just really good. We get Hagen's backstory with Daggett and how he was approached by Daggett to use this stuff on his face. And that we get more, the way that they talk about these jobs again, that he's just shows how Roland Daggett is. But Hagen's vanity, he's so ugly on the inside. It's that kind of story where, his ugliness on the outside becomes the ugliness on the inside. And maybe he was probably all the way, always like that. And it just kind of shows his character flaws as well. But he is sympathetic because he was approached with a cure for his, and then the cure ends up being worse than what he actually has for the facial deformities, and it just is slowly driving him mad. But I mean, if you turned out to be a clay monster, I don't think you'd have that great a time. You probably want to become a supervillain yourself. I mean, what else is there for you except to be like experimented on, or a sideshow freak, or somebody out there would try to capitalize on you if you didn't do it yourself. It's what makes a lot of these Batman villains just really tragic, even if they are like not always the best people, which Matt Hagen definitely seems to just be not a very nice person in general, that he's allowed the ugliness on the outside to infect his insides. Plus, probably killing people for Daggett has not helped either. But like he chose to do this anyway. But Matt can change at will now, like a reflex. But it takes all this extra concentration to do it. So any kind of distraction or kind of anything that kind of pushes him a little bit, it all falls apart. It all crumbles, and just it keeps making him feel even more and more like a monster, human being anymore. And so he plans on using the assassination attempt, or he knows that Daggett's guys are going to go finish off Lucius Fox. So he's using the place to get a hold of this guy that's going to kill him, so he can take his place and then get close to Daggett and then kill him. Now again, I know I bring this up all the time, but this is a kid's show, everybody. 1992, and we're talking about assassinations and killing other crones. It's just amazing. And the way that the stories are plotted out and just told, I was so fascinated by watching it. I'm just thinking to myself, what's out there right now for animation that was put out for kids that was just this good and so well told? It's not some just mindless gibberish now. Because there's a lot of good adult animation, but for kids, they have really dumbed it down. Really dumbed it down. And there's some shows like Adventure Time is really good. That's a good example of good storytelling. But it's in the little doses. You don't have full half-hour episodes most of the time on that. And Gravity Falls is fun, but that's fun. I'm talking hardcore, scary kind of doesn't pull any punches. So Bats, Germs tries to kill Lucius here, and Bats gets there before Hagen can. And we have this great scene where Germs tries to escape from Batman and ends up in a closet full of all these dangerous-looking on the shelves. And Batman grabs one of them, and he's like, I don't remember what he said, but just basically, Ebola, or, flesh-eating bacteria, or something there's no cure for this, or, because he's active disease cultures. Look at his blood samples, infectious. And so Batman corners him and puts a jar over his head and just proceeds to, threaten and then hit the wall so that the jar shakes over his head. And every time he doesn't answer him correctly, he just keeps hitting it, threatening, and the jar just gets closer to the edge to dropping on this guy's head. Well, this is when you hear a familiar voice from behind Batman, and it's Hagen pretending to be a police officer. And, you know, goes to like, hey, I'll take over for this. But right as he says that, okay, you're gonna see it in a second. Before he gives the guy over to Hagen, he takes one last punch at the wall that he didn't need to do, but he just doesn't like this guy. And so he hits the wall and it falls. Okay, and I'm just going to shut up for a second. No, I'm not going to shut up. But he hits the wall and it falls and he catches it. And it's just the way he does it. Just this like kind of nonchalant, like, you know, the kind of move where he does this, that. And then it falls and you think it's like going to hit the guy and be toxic chemicals. It's seawater for analysis. He had to just kind of throw that at the guy. Well, Hagen then, like when Batman tries to question him, he slams him into the wall and like temporarily like knocks him out and takes germs out of there. Well, Batman eventually catches up to him on the rooftop, where we get this really, again, I can't stress enough how well this is animated, really well animated fight. Like in 1992 on TV, there's never been anything better animated at this point. At this point on TV, I dare you to find a better animated scene than this ever for television. They have this great fight where he's changing in different compositions to his body and everything, and Bruce seeing this for the first time, he's like, my God, like, or like, what in heaven's earth, or something like that. Like, he would have just said, holy shit, if he could have, you know what I mean? So Hagen, though, he can't, like, the strain of trying to be this way, trying to do all these things, is a lot on his system, and he can't take it, so he jumps off the roof. Batman's really intrigued, because he's like, hey man, how does this work? Like, it takes a lot out of you. You can tell that he's trying to learn about this, because he can't help it. He's the world's greatest detective. Well, Hagen jumps off the roof, and he tries to, like, stop him with his, like, one of his grapples, and he just goes right through him, and he hits the ground, and it just explodes, and he goes and slinks into the sewer drain backwards, like his face is in last, and the animation of his face sliding in as he's smiling is just so great and so creepy. I mean, come on, show this to a little kid right now, they'd probably shit themselves because they're such little, you know, snowflakes. They've been watching too much stupid shit. Anyway. So, let's see, and I wrote Altieri rules as usual. So Hagen's vengeance, though, is for Daggett, is driving him further insane. He's in, like, this guy's house. He must be staying there because he has nowhere else to go. But he sees on TV from Summer Gleason, the reporter, that Daggett's going to be on TV. And he's going to be talking about the product that he used, and it's called Renew You. So at this point, we get a shot of, like, Batman kind of, like, talking about, like, how to Alfred this case just momentarily, and we get to cut to the studio where Batman sneaks in dressed as a janitor and begins to put videotapes in all these monitors. Now, again, this is the way that this gets called back is really convenient. Like, did Batman always mean for this to happen, this endgame? Or did he mean for it to happen out in the studio because he knew he was going to be there, but how many TVs? Because he puts them in multiple monitors. So, I mean, I kind of feel like you had to, like, just kind of ignore this fact that unless Batman knew that the last scene in this confrontation was going to end up in that room, there was really no reason for him to do this. It's a little story convenience. Well, while he's doing that, Daggett's telling everybody about the wonders of Renew You and how you can change your face. You got a blemish, you need plastic surgery. Forget all those plastic surgery bills. Like, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to yourself, and it's going to be fine. Well, all of a sudden, this audience member, this woman, stands up, and she's got like this surprisingly amount of like, let me get to that part. He has a surprising amount of info about the dangers of Renew You. Just going like, why haven't you told all these people about the side effects and the dangers it can cause for continued use? And why don't you tell them about me? And it's just like all of a sudden this woman. You imagine being on live, like sitting in a studio audience and this lady's kind of going off like somebody from a Jerry Springer audience member, and just suddenly transforms into this huge blob like in front of everybody. I mean, that's nightmare fuel for a lot of people. That would be insane to see that in like real life. So all the people are freaking out. Everybody's running. Daggett's horrified too because he can't believe what he's seeing. Batman comes down there to the studio to try to reason with him. He stops Daggett from escaping because he's a real bad person, but it doesn't work because by the end of this episode he kind of like just gets away with it. Which is another scary thing. Like, sometimes the bad people get away with it. But there's also there's an end that also says the same thing about Clayface. So, he stops Daggett temporarily from escaping, and he gets into this confrontation with Clayface, who doesn't want to hear it. Because Batman's trying to say, look, what you can do, what has happened to you is terrible, but we can help you. I can get you through this. We can get, some help. So that you can have your career again. You don't have to do this. You don't have to be like this. Don't let this man like continue to ruin your life. Don't go so far so that you can't come back. In essence. But it doesn't work, and we get this more of a fight, and it ends up back in that room, where all the monitors are. And Batman, he starts getting his ass handed to him. He starts getting smothered by Clayface's clay. And he hits play in the monitors, and all of the images pop up of all the people that Hagen has played over the years. And man, it really bugs me that all this stuff just keeps freezing on me. And so when he's confronted with all of these characters that he's played, he starts transforming into all of them, but he can't stop. It's like one after the other flashing. And I'm telling you again, like, this whole episode is just so groundbreaking. The animation, like, the way that he's designed in the transformations and how they scramble up so that parts of him are one character and another character. Part of him looks like the Absorbing Man from Marvel, but he also looks like there's another DC character that kind of has multiple colors on his face, and I can't remember what he's called. Somebody in the comment section, let me know what that guy is if you guys know who I'm talking about. But the uncontrollable animation reminds me also of John Carpenter's The Thing. Like when the thing would be confronted and it would just freak out and all sorts of stuff would just be going everywhere. Things would be coming out of its body that don't normal. Just losing complete control and screaming, and eventually Clayface like slams into one of the control panels and electrocutes himself, and he falls down. And he tells Batman, like, what does he say? You know what I would have given for a death scene like this? And as an actor, and he's like, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to see the notices. And then he supposedly dies. But then later, so history, proves, like, well, not history, but like the next day Bruce is exonerated because the cops saw Clayface turn into Bruce Wayne. They purposely mention, like, hey, that guy looks like Bruce Wayne, so it can conveniently then let Bruce off the hook. But meanwhile, in the Batcave later, he has a piece of the clay that's left behind, and he's hitting it with electricity, and it not only is the electricity not destroying it, but it seems to be thriving off of it. It's actually reacting to it in like all these cool, crazy ways, kind of again like The Thing in John Carpenter, the John Carpenter movie, where if you put a little bit of blood or heat, or you kind of attack it, it reacts the same way. So it's really, really cool. And I just came up with that John Carpenter connection on the fly, because it's the first time I was thinking about that. But so they go like, well, if this is what happened, then electricity has no effect on him, which means he can't be dead. So what's in the morgue? And so they cut to the morgue where it's just this pile of like dirt now. It's all just crumbled and gone. And so he's like, you know, Hagen was an actor. And, you know, so maybe this is just like the greatest role that he had. And he's gotten away with it. And you see Hagen's buddy I don't know where he's outside of, actually. He's outside of this place, and this woman walks by and looks back at his buddy. And this is Clayface, and you see the eyes go all yellow. And then he just starts laughing. So like Roland Daggett gets away. I mean, look at this. Roland Daggett gets away, and then Clayface just walks out the door because nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows he can look like anybody, which, you know, definitely leaves the door open for all sorts of possibilities in returns of Clayface. Because a lot of times what they would do in a show like this is they would just, you know, make you think that the character was killed off, right? But in this, Batman knows for sure he's not dead. Like, this isn't going to be some surprise. Like, I mean, anytime he'd come back would be a surprise since he can look like anybody. That kind of thing where somebody falls off a cliff, you know, that kind of thing where they into some clouds or into some water from a long height that you don't think somebody could survive. This is like he straight up fooled everybody and faked his own death. And the only one who knows is Batman and Alfred. And that's how he did it. And that is just genius. Like, I love throwing when I'm done and I'm satisfied and I'm like, that's the genius of this show. And I mean, the animation behind me like speaks for itself. So another fantastic episode of Batman the Animated Series. I hope you guys are enjoying watching these with me and talking about them, because I'm having a blast. This is just a dream to be able to talk about this stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying them as much as I am. And so, like, such terrible self-promotion, and since I never say it at the beginning of these episodes, please hit the like button. That would be sweet if you know, honestly, the analytics and all that stuff, I don't really care about that. But we are 10 away from 1,000 as of me recording this video right now. So we're at 990. It would be great if we could get that last final 10 so I could pull the proverbial stick out of my butt about it, and we can all move on with our lives. Otherwise, we're going to be back next with It's Never Too Late. The next episode where it's Batman intervenes in a gang war and tries to convince the older of two rival bosses to change his ways. So, this is Robert Smirking Gun Review saying see you next week at Batman the Animated Series. Otherwise, you know, tomorrow we've got Watchmen. Monday we've got His Dark Materials. Tuesday we got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, yeah. Oh, and also, guys, look out for, well, this will already be out. So never mind. I was going to tell you about something I'm doing on Sunday. But this doesn't come out till Monday. So, and I keep talking about Watchmen. Like, I'm recording this early. It'll be out then, so I'm keeping with my schedule, though. So have a great night, everybody. And we will see you on the next episode of Batman, the Animated Series. Bye. Perfect ending.